everyone, I'm Stephanie, and welcome back to So Many Things. Today's pattern is a great beginner-friendly quick sew. I've been searching for what seems like forever for the perfect cozy scarf, and I just haven't been able to find one until now. While searching through my list of patterns, I came across one from Heidi Finn. It's called the triangular wrap scarf, and it is so versatile and so quick to sew up that I can't believe I've never made it before. So today, that's what we'll be making together. This scarf would also be a great gift idea for anyone that's looking for a last-minute gift for anyone in their family, teacher, loved one. So let's get the pattern printed off, cut out, and let's start sewing. Here's a few things you're going to need. The pattern, an outside fabric, an inside fabric, and a small piece of fusible fleece or interfacing of some sort. You're also going to need pinking shears, some scissors or a rotary cutter, and some pins. So I've gone ahead and chosen a 60-inch wide cotton flannel. Now you'll need the extra width because the pattern piece is actually quite large. So we're going to have to fold our fabric lengthwise rather than salvage sides together, just because our pattern piece is so large that we need the extra room. So once you've got that done and it's all nice and flat, then you can put your pattern piece on top. Now I'm going to use a combination of my Wonder Clips and pattern weights to get this tacked down. You could pin it as well. I'm just not a fan of making holes in my pattern, which is why I use the Wonder Clips. But if it doesn't matter to you whether or not your pattern piece has a few little tiny holes, go ahead and pin it in place. Once you've got it laid out really nice, cut around the two edges of your pattern piece. Once you've got that done, unclip or unpin. Set your pattern piece aside because we will need it for the lining. And here is your ginormous triangle. So we will put this aside just till we get our lining piece cut. I've chosen minky for our lining today. Hopefully I've chosen minky. So do take your time with this step to lay it all out flat. Whew. I was afraid that I wasn't going to have enough, but I have just enough, which is awesome. So I'm going to pin this down, cut this out, and then we'll see if we can work with these two ginormous pieces on my table. If you're making one of these at home, I would suggest maybe cutting at your dining room table. If you're having a hard time with that, then opt for the floor. Just realized I think I've chosen the wrong shirt for today's video. Black minky, well, any minky, tends to fluff. So my shirt's going to be covered in black fluff. Just going to set this aside. You're also going to need two of these smaller triangles from the pattern cut out of fusible interfacing. I've chosen fusible fleece just because that's what I had on hand, and it's a little bit more flexible than a lot of the different other interfacings. It's going to reinforce the corners where we're going to add the tie to the front of the scarf, so it needs a little extra strength there. So now that we've got both our pieces cut out, we're going to pin them right sides together. Now it is quite a large pattern, so this may take you a few moments. Just take your time, and Again, if you need to work off of the floor or off your dining room table, something that has a little bit more size to it, then please do so, because this is quite a large pattern. So you may have noticed that I used a lot of pins. One of the tricks I've learned over the years of working with Minky is the more pins, the better. Yes, it takes a long time to put them all in, and even longer to take them all out when you're sewing, but it really helps to stop the Minky from sliding while you're sewing. So more pins, always better in this situation. Once you've got it all pinned, you're just going to do a very simple straight stitch, 3/8 seam allowance, all the way around, leaving about a 2-inch gap on one of the sides to be able to turn your scarf inside out. So let's head over to the sewing machine and we'll set that up. If you're new to sewing and this is one of your very first projects that you've chosen to make, I'll walk you through some of your setup steps. So on your machine, you will find a dial that has like little lines on it. That's your stitch length dial. You're going to want to set it at about 2.5, which is your standard stitch length. You're going to also want your needle in the center position, because once you have it in the center position, you can guide the edge of your fabric off of the lines on your plate on the bottom of your machine. There's going to be one down there that says 3/8. That's our seam allowance for this pattern, so that's the line that you're going to follow the edge of your fabric with. So now that we have that all set up, let's get to sewing. Now that we're done at the sewing machine, we can unpin. So you should have left an opening about 2 inches wide, 2.5 inches, somewhere around there, to be able to turn this. Now we're not quite at that step yet, but if you forgot to leave an opening, just use a seam ripper and cut open a little hole so that you can turn it in a moment. We will also have to, because the 2 corners are quite pointy, we're going to have to debulk a little bit our seam by trimming our corners. So once we get all these pins out, now many of you may pull pins as you sew. I opt not to. I probably should, and I just keep my fingers crossed that my needle doesn't hit one of the pins and bust a needle. Alright, so I'm going to use my pinking shears and I'm just going to trim the fabric relatively close to the seam, about 1/4 inch. This is the point where we're going to add in our little fusible fleece corners. So you should have 2, and we're going to, if I can figure out which way they go, fuse them on to our minky side. I'm sure it probably doesn't matter which side. I just prefer to do it on the lining side in case it causes us a little ripple or wrinkle. Then I know it's on the inside of my finished product and not the outside. So we're just going to take those back to the ironing board, give them a gentle press medium heat, no steam, and they should stick perfectly. So at this point, you're going to want to find your hole that you left open and turn it inside out. Going to want to find a blunt object. I like this elastic puller. There'll be a link to it down in the description below so that you can purchase some if you need, but any blunt object will do. And just poke out the corners. The next step will be a little time consuming. We're going to have to head back to the ironing board and we're going to just fold our seams flat so that the minky's on the back and our flannel's on the front, and then that seam is nice and crisp so that nothing's rolling over to one side or the other. So I've gotten it all pressed. My seams are nice and flat. Now the pattern doesn't ask for it to be top stitched. I'm a fan of top stitching, so I think I might do mine, but it's not mandatory. So if you don't feel like doing that, then please feel free to omit that part. It's just a personal preference of mine. Once I have it top stitched, then it's time to attach the closure. I've chosen to create my own. Now you could use a snap, you could use a button. I'm going to use just a clip and a D-ring that I've had on hand, and I've created two little what look like beakers to attach them to the scarf with out of some old leather that I had laying around in the sewing. So let's place those, or at least get placement ready for those, on the pattern piece. You will see some large circles with an X through them. That is your placement for your button. Get it lined up to where it should be, and then poke a hole through your pattern down to your fabric. Use a fabric marker, something of that nature, and mark the spot. Even a pencil will work as long as your fabric is light enough that you'll be able to see it. So you probably can't see it, but there's a little white dot on my fabric, and that's where my placement needs to be. So on this end, I'm going to place my buckle piece. And on the opposite end, we're going to put the opposite piece. Now the nice thing about using an old leather scrap is that I know that it's not going to fray, and I don't have to do anything to the edges because it is leather. So this piece, I'm going to follow more the side line of the fabric. So on our first one, we went straight. Can you see that? We went straight out the side. This one we're going to like tilt it up a little bit, just to give it some definition, and also when it's tied up, it'll give it that little side hang feature. So this being the top edge of your fabric where your neck would go, it's pointing up. So I'm going to head over and get this top stitched, and then what I'm going to do is attach these pieces. So they're already pinned on, which is great, so that I know their location. What I'm going to do is go around the edge of my leather and then do like a little X in the middle to make sure that there's really that strength in that joint, so that when you're pulling it on and off, that the tension won't rip it off. I thought I'd give you a little close-up of what I've done, so hopefully it'll read a little bit better. So this is the one side of the clip. You can see how I attached the leather with the X in the center so that there's good tension on that. And it is attached to the fleece that's on the inside, so there is a lot of strength built into that. Once you've got your clip tied on, your project's done. So this project may have taken me 15 to 20 minutes to create. I hope you've had as much fun sewing this project as I have. As always, please like, subscribe, and press that bell button to get notification of my new videos coming out.